Welcome to our quick tutorial on how to do the separation of mixtures lab. And so we are going to take a look at how this process works. Get my lab coat on. I'm going to pull back my hair because we are going to be working with open flame today. So if you have longer hair, you want to pull that back. And make sure I have my goggles on before we even start. All right, so I am all ready to go. We have a mixture that has sand, salt, and iron in it. And so when you get into lab, you will probably have a small cup that has this mixture in it already that will be all out at your lab station. You will have a balance too. I didn't bring the balance out here for this demonstration, but you will have a balance. So what you want to do is you want to mass out 3 grams of this stock sample. So I'm going to do approximately, I've been looking at this all day today, so I'm going to do approximately 3 grams. And you just want to write down exactly the numbers that display on the balance. The rest of this can just get set aside. We don't need it anymore. So now I have my mixture, my 3 grams or approximately 3 grams that I've recorded. Make sure it's just the mass of the sample, not the mass of your cup. So you'll have to think about how to do that in your group. Okay. We're going to go ahead and take this and we want to separate out the iron first. To do that, I have this little magnet inside of a baggie. You want to leave the magnet inside the bag. If you pull it out, you're going to have a little bit of difficulty trying to get the iron filings to come off of there. And so you can use this to get the iron out of your cup. There's a couple different ways to do that. So if you just kind of run it around inside your cup, kind of make sure you turn your sample around. And we want to make sure that we get all of that out of there. So sometimes as it starts to stick a little more, there's some still left in there. What I'm going to do to get the iron off of there is I have a separate cup, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the baggie, grab on, I'm going to set this up here so you can see a little bit better. You wouldn't do this on here, but I'm going to grab that baggie and I'm going to pull the magnet away. And then I'm going to go ahead and go back into that sample and make sure that I got all of that out of there, a little bit more in there, okay, and do the same thing. Now, sometimes when you do that, some of the sand and salt will actually stick in with the iron filings, and I have that inside my cup. So I'm going to go ahead and do a second one of these just to kind of try to get that just to be that purified sample of iron filings. So that looks like it's all of it. I'm going to put my sand and salt back in with my other cup, and then I'm going to deposit this in here. I'm going to get that mass for just the iron filings and make sure I record that in a data table so that I have that for later. So I'm going to set that aside. That's done then, and we always keep that and put it back in with our stock sample. So after you've done that, you're going to bring it up, put it back in the stock sample. Make sure you got your mass before you do this, and we just reuse that. The next thing we want to do is we want to add some water to this, and so we're going to need a little beaker. And dump the remainder of this mixture into the beaker. And then we want to add some water. We have distilled water in our wash bottle. And we're going to add about 15 milliliters of our water. We don't want to add too much because it takes us forever to evaporate off all the water, but we also don't want to add too little. And so if we do that, then we have about the right amount for this particular sample. So I'm going to dump that in. I want to go ahead and swirl that around a little bit, let that dissolve. And once it's dissolved, it shouldn't take too long, I want to go ahead and filter out the sand. And so in order to filter that out, I have a piece of filter paper. This is actually a coffee filter, which works great for this lab. But no matter what, even if you have other filter paper, we fold filter paper the same way. So we're going to fold it in half once. We're going to fold it in half a second time. And then what we want to do is we want to open this up so we have 1 thickness of filter paper on one side and 3 thicknesses on the other. And that's going to go into our funnel. I'm going to move this back out of the way for a moment. That goes into our funnel. We want to go ahead and get that wet, the filter paper. I don't like to do that over the top of my other stuff because I don't want to add extra water. So over the sink, I'm just going to get that wet. And then I want to make sure that all the seams inside there where there's the folds are completely sealed off so we don't have any leaking. Then I can take that filter paper and funnel, drop it inside an Erlenmeyer flask, and I'm going to go ahead and pour my sample in there. And I want to do this with this particular lab. We want to do it fairly quick. There's a lot of labs we're going to do that a lot slower. So I'm going to go ahead and dump it in there, not so much that it splashes out at the top. And then there's usually a little bit left in there. And so if you tip up your beaker and you take your wash bottle, you can start to just add a little bit of extra water to get the rest of that residue out. Okay, so good technique work there. Okay, we're gonna let that filter all the way out here. It's gonna take just a moment. And then once that's done, we have to keep our sand, we put it in a drying oven and we let that set overnight, and then we get the final mass of that the next day. So we'll let that go a little bit longer. All right, looks like that's done. So I'm just gonna go ahead and set that along the side. We wrap that up in some paper towel and we mark it so we know that it's our groups. Okay, the last thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and evaporate off all of our water to leave just the salt. Now, you're gonna have an evaporating dish, looks like this, and you're gonna have a watch glass. And when we do this, we wanna get the mass of this whole contraption before we put stuff in there. And it's really important because if you run out of time and I have to help you out, we need to make sure we have the whole mass. So we're gonna get the mass of that to begin with, without any liquid in there. We wanna make sure that this is all the way dry if there was a lab group working with it the period before. We're gonna dump all of our salt water into there. And then what I wanna do is I wanna set this on top of the wire mesh that's on my ring stand, and I'm going to put on top of there my watch glass, okay? Then we go ahead and light our Bunsen burner. So for those of you who don't know how to light using the matchbooks, if you pull a match out, there's an emery strip on the back. I fold the flap all the way over to the top, hold gently, pull the match. So I'm gonna pull the match. This is nice when you have two people because one person can work the match and one person can work the gas. We're gonna take a match out of the matchbook. There's an emery strip on the back. We're gonna fold that over, hold it between our forefinger and our thumb just gently, and we're gonna pull the match. Have another person work the gas. So they're gonna turn on the gas. We're gonna light our Bunsen burner, and that's a good flame. We've got a small blue flame inside of a bigger blue flame. So we like to have that small blue flame inside the other one. And then I go ahead and slide it under. I think that's a really good technique. So light the Bunsen burner outside, then slide it underneath there. And we're just gonna let this go until we have no more liquid inside there. Don't touch anything. When you are all the way done, you're going to turn this off, let it cool for a moment on there, and then you will take it off and set it on the heat-resistant surface. There will be all sorts of salt that'll be attached to both of those. Let it cool for at least 5 minutes. It has to be cool to the touch. We never put anything hot onto one of our balances. Then you can get that final mass, and we get the mass of the salt or the sand the next day, and we analyze our data.